Okay, so we're going to continue using our ball, and now we're going to jump into some animation techniques here. So we're going to be turning these animations into GIFs or GIFs or however you'd like to say it. And because of that, we need to be working with a little bit smaller of a file size for the web. So we're going to create a new document here in Photoshop, and we're going to use 800 by 600 pixels, and 72 resolution is fine. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's get that set up. So we're going to use our ball from the ball that you created on the last exercise. And what I'm going to do is I have everything in a group. I'm just going to Command C and then Command V into that. And then I'm actually going to I'm going to combine all these layers. So I'm going to select all these layers. I'm going to right click, merge layers. I'll take that ball out of the folder, and then I can just delete that folder. So I have the ball that we've created, and let's go ahead and I'm going to scale this down a little bit. Let's go, I don't know, something like that is fine. Okay. And to begin, we're going to go over some of the basic animation features here. So let's come down to timeline and window. And this is going to give you two options. It's going to give you, right here it says create frame animation. The alternative is create video timeline. We want create frame animation for now. I'll get into the video timeline a little bit later. So go ahead and click that here. So you'll see this interface drops down here. We have a timeline on the bottom. Whoop. Okay. And if we're going to be dealing a lot with animation, we would want to change our preference setup here down to motion. You could leave it on essentials for what we're doing now, but just know that as we would get further into this, we might want to have that motion presets going, okay? So, but I'm just going to stay on essentials here. And what I want to do is I want to show you just some quick features that make your life really easy when it comes to animating. We're going to do this a couple of different ways. So this first exercise, I want to show you what's called tweening. And what that is Photoshop will basically fill in the information between keyframes that you set. Okay, so notice right here, my layers look the same as they always do. I have my background in layer 6, but then the timeline right here, these are my frames, right? And these two can work together, your layers and your frames, or they can work independently. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the next exercise. But for what we're doing now, I'll just show you how this works. So I have our first frame, and I can move this anywhere. And notice the thumbnail down here updates, right? Wherever I move this, that's where my first frame is going to be set. So we're gonna play some Pong here. I'm gonna build a couple of things. So I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm just gonna create I'm gonna create a paddle, and I'll fill this in with black, and I'll just call this left paddle. Okay, and then I'm gonna Command C, Command V. Oops. Let me make sure I have this paddle selected. Command C, Command V. I'm going to make another paddle, and we're going to call this right paddle. Okay, and I'll move this accordingly here. Okay. And let me change my ball. There we go. Okay. So notice the thumbnail down here. Everything is updating as I build these paddles and move the ball around. So let's start with our first frame. Let's say I'm going to set the ball right on that paddle. This is our first frame. And then what we do here, we're not going to build the animation here any longer. We're not really going to be touching this at all. Well, we will be selecting things to move them, but this is how I want us to be building from the timeline. So we're going to go to create, duplicate the selected frame. So since I only have the one, it duplicates. It's the exact same thing, right? So what we need to do with the second frame is now we're going to move things to where we want them. So I'm going to move the ball just to the bottom of the screen here. I'm going to have it touch right there. Maybe I'll move this paddle up a little bit. I'm going to hold shift so it doesn't go forward or backwards. And maybe I'll move this paddle down a little bit. Okay. So I've moved them. I haven't created anything in between, but what Photoshop can do now, if you look at this little tab right here, this little button, Tweens Animation Frames. If I click this, it's going to ask me what 2 frames do I want to use to build the frames in between. So right here, I only have the 2, but it's just the previous frame, right? So I'm building from the frame that was before, I move things around, and now I'm saying, okay, fill in the information. How many frames do you want to add? I'm just going to put 10, all layers, keep all this checked, parameters on and everything, and just hit OK, and you'll see that Photoshop filled in the information. Now you used to have to go about doing this kind of the manual way, back in the day, but now with technology and software, we can get the computers to do a lot of this heavy lifting for us. So if you want to see what this looks like right now, we can just hit play, and we can see it's looping. And I have this set right here, so you can change this to once, 3 times, or forever, or you can customize it. But if we just want to see what this looks like, right, that's what we have. Let me put that back on forever so we can see that. Okay, so that's what we have. Okay, we're going to stop it. I'm going to come to our last frame here, and then I'm going to hit this duplicate frame again, and that's going to duplicate the frame that I'm on. So I'm selected that last frame. I duplicate that, and now I'll move things again. So I'm going to click on this ball, and let's say I'll move it up. I'll move it up here. I'll click my paddle and move that up a little bit. That just so it's touching. And then maybe I'll move this paddle down a little bit just to give it some more movement. Okay. And then same thing, I make sure I'm on that last frame that I selected, and then I'm going to come back to this tween button, and it's going to ask me with which frames. So I don't want to do first frame, because then that would tween with all the way with this one in the beginning. I just want to tween basically from the last frame that I was at to the new updated frame that I'm on now. And how many frames do you want to put inside? I'm just going to leave that on 10 again. Okay. And then we can see here, if we play this again, now it's moving a bit more. Okay. And then let's keep going with this. I'm going to come to the last frame, frame number 23 that I have, and then I'm going to duplicate that again. Right? Duplicate the selected frame, so now I'm on frame 24. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to move this, let's say all the way over here. I'm going to move this paddle up. Right, let me move this ball again. Okay. I'll move this down a little bit just to keep it moving. Oops. Okay. And then back to the tween button here. I'm going to hit that. Now that was a longer distance, right? So the first bounce and the second bounce, we're bouncing off the bottom here. But this one was all in one motion from one paddle to the next. So I might not want 10 frames. I might want to have, I don't know, 15, right? Just a little bit more to make that movement a bit more fluid. Okay, and then let's see what this looks like. Okay, there we go. So I could keep building on and on and on and on, but I'm just going to stop right there, and that's where I'm going to have you guys do. So as your weekly exercise, let's do the same thing. I mean, basically just follow along with the video, but let's tween this ball bouncing. I don't necessarily have a minimum. I would say, 3 or 4 bounces just to get this process going. And once you're happy with your little animation, what we'll do here, let me stop this. It's a little bit different if we're going to be exporting this as a GIF. So we're going to come up to File and come to Export and then Save for Web right here. You should have an option like this, and I'll show you here. This opens up another menu. And now you have some things to control here. So GIFs, what we want to do is we want to look at the file size first of all. So 101.8 Okay, that's pretty small, so I don't really have to worry about anything there. But if you had kind of a massive file size, you would reduce that by reducing your colors here. So I would say right now it's probably fine, but you could see that if I bring these colors down, like let's say I come down to 8 colors, you can see this file size getting drastically reduced, right? But I'm just going to come back up to 64, make sure this is on GIF here, and then we'll hit Save. And I'm just going to put this on the desktop. I'm going to put Pong Pong GIF, okay? And the way that you want to test these to make sure that they're working is that, where is it on the desktop? So I have Pong GIF here. I can double click it and that'll open it up, right? It'll show me the individual frames. But what you want to do is you want to open that GIF with a web browser here. So I'm going to come to Open With and down to Safari. This doesn't mean it's on the internet. This just means it's using an internet application to open it. And this is what it would look like. So if you wanted to prepare GIFs for the web, this is how you would check to make sure it's working. And then there we go. We've just created our first animation. Okay, so you can just send me the GIF. No need to send me the Photoshop files for this exercise. But I would be practicing with that tween options and getting a feel for this. And then we'll jump into the next exercise.